Welcome to Authentic Living and Loving Channel, where trailblazers share stories of success, living to the beat of their own drum, in places that inspire and feed your imagination. Get ready to discover, explore, grow, and find your bliss. Here's your host, Dr. Jordan Alexander.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jordan Alexander, and today we are fortunate to have Jeanette Mundy with us. She's a coach, she's a businesswoman, she's an entrepreneur and an author. She's committed to transforming lives. She's spent 10 years studying ontology as an approach to transformation and adds it to 35 years of business, training, and leadership experience. I met Jeanette in the Ingenesis community, and she is an amazing person and thought, yep, she's got to come on the show today. She's also a proud grandma, and she's joining us from Australia's tropical Whitsunday coast, which I'm very jealous of because I'm literally sitting in like 6-degree weather here in Masterton. So if you're a woman who feels like I'm invisible, I'm misunderstood, I'm frustrated, I'm being pushed around, I'm angry, I don't know who I am, I don't know where I fit, maybe I've lost myself, you are not alone. Hundreds of clients that Jeanette has supported over the years used to say the same thing. I think you're going to love today's session. I know I'm going to. I'm very excited. Welcome, Jeanette, and thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Jordan. What an intro.
You're amazing. I was so excited. I think when I first met you a couple of years ago, I was just like, oh my gosh, Jeanette is going to be perfect for the Authentic Living Show because you're authentic, you're amazing, you're bold. I love that you're out there and you're passionate and you help people, and it's amazing.
Thank you so much. You're amazing too, and I always love our conversations. So this is going to be no different, I'm sure.
Absolutely. So Jeanette, I mean, something that I haven't heard from you before, and I'm really interested in, sort of like, where did you come from? Like, how did you get to be this amazing person that you are now? So tell me a little bit about, where did you grow up? How did you grow up? Were there influences in that sort of background that you have?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Melbourne, Victoria, so I haven't always lived in the beautiful Whitsunday coast, but I lived in cold Melbourne. But I grew up in what I always say, it's a sporting family. You know, my father was a swimming coach, a very high-profile swimming coach in his day. My mother was a swimming teacher. She managed a swim school, but I played basketball. My 3 elder sisters swam nationally. My younger sister played basketball as well. So we were really sporty. And there was always this influence in our life around excellence and what that meant. And so one of my biggest challenges and wounding was the way we were parented. But at the same time, one of the biggest influences in my life was my father, in that his swimmers were, I mean, he was tough, you know, back then in those years, in the 70s, 60s, 70s and 80s, he was a tough swimming coach, but he was also a tough father and very highly critical. And my mother was quite suppressed and at the same time very effective at the swim school and in managing it. So I grew up with 4 other sisters. There was 5 girls in our family, and there was always this undertone of, you have to strive, you have to reach your potential, you have to do your best. But best was never really enough. Even when you were trying your hardest, it was never really enough. In fact, it was never enough. And so you can't, you know, we were stuck between a rock and a hard place. But the thing that I've constantly taken away from that is that there is this beautiful potential in all of us. And that if we can sort of get rid of the cobwebs, get rid of all of the stuff that's going on in the background for us that we create due to our upbringing and the things that we were told about ourselves, and so then we're taking that on, if we can kind of get rid of that, what might be possible for us? So it kind of, you know, that was my life, and that was where I sort of came from. But I ended up going into swimming teaching. So I became a swimming teacher, and then I made my way up into supervising and then management, and then I owned my own swim school. But I want to just take a little quick step back to when I was 16, because that was the moment that I saw at the swim school. These two little boys had come along for swimming with the school, and these kids had been terribly abused. And when I mean terribly abused, it was violent, and they'd seen a lot of violence. And they were one of them was brain damaged, and the other one just couldn't stand the sight of blood. And there was just all this trauma going on in their lives. And I'd never seen any of that. I'd never seen this trauma and experienced anything like that in my life. I mean, I had extended family, I had cousins, I had grandparents, I had this beautiful network of human beings. Even though internally there was tough stuff going on, I also had this wonderful community around me. So I hadn't experienced what these kids had experienced. I'd never seen it. I didn't even know that it even existed. And then when I saw it, I started questioning, oh, what the heck have I just seen? Going on in society, what is going on in life, that people are getting to this stage where they're abusing, what is going on in the women's lives where they're stuck in that, what is it doing to our communities, what is it, so I started to spin all these. If you understand the way my brain works, Jordan, it's that I spin all these little spider webs and I make all these connections.
Yeah.
Started at that moment to go, right, I'm going to play a part in this change. There is something going on here and I just kept observing the world from that point of view. And all the time that I was in the swim school, over 30 plus years, I was there supporting parents, supporting mothers and fathers, supporting their children, helping the parents to understand where their children experience fear and why, and what was getting in the way of them really enjoying the water and having that fun for themselves. And I also really helped the parents to leave behind that shame that they were experiencing around their children's fear and thinking that they might have done something wrong. And so I always had that influence in lives to help them to sort of overcome those hurdles and then be able to just go forward and really thrive.
So that's really interesting. So if I hear what you're saying, it's not a coaching session, but if I hear and understand what you're saying, so you had this aha moment when you were younger, and then it's almost like everything that you've been doing since then has fit into this way of being that you've had that includes supporting people, that includes, it's not just here for the swimming lesson, what's going on behind the scenes and it sounds like almost that you were born to coach in some ways, because isn't it interesting? You can focus on the businesswoman part, but then I'm hearing a lot of support behind the scenes, which wouldn't have been on the menu of, would that be right?
Oh, 100%. It just wasn't how people operated swim schools.
Yeah.
It just wasn't, but it was in my DNA. It was in my experience, because I knew that I could see, I really feel that what my father gave me was a gift into seeing that people could really excel and do so well for themselves. But he also gave me the wound of that. But I took that gift and went, okay, how can I show people that there can be a different way? So instead of getting stuck in that wound that you're in, how can there be a different way? But I still had a lot of work to do myself around that. I did. But at that time, that was the start of that for me. And I coached in many capacities. I coached basketball as well, and I coached in organizations. So coaching was kind of always there in one capacity or another.
Right. So you ended up in the coaching sort of space, and you've chosen to work predominantly with women. So how did that kind of broader focus of support, helping at the swim school, what made you decide to narrow down and focus on women, which I'm glad you did, by the way, but nonetheless, what was sort of behind that?
I feel like I know women. I feel like that there's this intuition that women have that is quite different to men, and they also have this nurturing aspect to them. Sometimes that nurturing aspect can end up creating like a life where they feel like they're burdened. And I can relate to that. I can also relate to that their way of not feeling like they're enough, their way of not feeling like they're good enough parents, their way of not being able to influence the conversations around them, and their way of, getting in their own way when they're trying to be the leaders of their own life, and then sitting back and going, well, life is just like this. So they kind of settle.
Do you,
So
do you think we're too responsible? Like, it just feels like, if there's ever a task, and back in the day, I don't know if you'll remember, but like I remember being in boardroom situations, and even as I worked my way up in career, I'd always still be the one that was tidying the cookies and teacups off the table, because all the guys had left, but it's like, is that a responsible thing? Is that a woman thing? Is that, I probably still do that, like, so, we've come such a long way in equality, right? So what is it about women that we just seem to, like sponges, take on more and more and more responsibility?
yeah, we do. We absolutely do. We seem to have the weight of the world on our shoulders. It's look, I think that there is this incredible inbuilt value in women that they don't really see and appreciate that they have. They can't see that there's something so special about them just by being born a woman.
Mm.
And that's there. So that sort of sits there for me to say, but and then they take on life as though instead of being able to influence matters, they seem to sit in the background, and they don't, many of them sit in the background instead of sort of taking on life and taking on conversations and taking on, you can actually influence this relationship in such a positive way. They will just silence themselves.
Mm. Mm.
But there is this beautiful way that we converse as women that can add so much value into a relationship or a conversation or an area of life that we tend not to see for ourselves. And then we can kind of get stuck in the mud and stand to the back, or just don't take a seat at the table, as we've all heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're denying this innate ability, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you spoke before about a couple of specific stories of women that you've worked with, and it might be useful maybe to just share a little bit of that, that before and after, um, what had happened in their journeys through working with you.
Mm, mm. Okay, so most of the women who come to me to work with me kind of are ready. They know that they want things to be different. So they might have a kind of a vision, or they might say they want to make a bit of an impact somewhere. So they've got this thing already that's sitting there, that's where they're feeling a bit unsettled and not willing to continue feeling unsettled for themselves. So they come with that. And then soon into our conversations, what I find is that they're holding themselves back in conversations. They're taking everything that's thrown at them. So they might find themselves in a role where they're supposed to step up and be a manager or a leader or something, and yet they're still taking all of these words that are thrown at them, like, oh, you're not assertive enough, or you're not confident enough, and that's just thrown out at them
Hmm.
a lot of way, and then they just take that on board as though that is them and that belongs to them. I'm not assertive, I'm not confident, I'm not courageous. So they start to label themselves in this way that society tends to label women.
Mm.
That we don't have the right to stand up for our point of view, or we can't stand up for our point of view, or however that's framed.
Mm.
So soon after we start, we have to break down what's actually getting in the way and what's sitting behind all of those things. What is actually creating this narrative that they're coming from, where they just can't make an impact, or they can't influence their own lives in a particular way. And what I will often find is that along the way, I usually find that there's a bit of resignation sitting there. Oh, well, this is just the way things are. This is just the way it is, you know. The men have these roles and the women don't, and I can't make an impact there, or this is just the way it is in my relationship, you know, and they sort of start to settle through this lens of being resigned that life can't get any better for them. So, you know, they come with this desire and they come with this sort of thing like, oh, I've got this thing that I want to create in the world, or I want to have this make this change. Soon, deep down, I find that there's this resignation going on in the background.
So is that resignation, and that is that the settling part? Is that the, you know, so that's where, so this is my lot in life. You know, I remember my grandma saying, not my grandma, my mom saying, about relationships, you know, oh, mom, you know, I'm thinking about ending this relationship, whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And you get the whole, does he drink too much? No. Does he beat you? No. What's the problem? You know, and it's like, you know, it's like, oh, okay. So it's almost like everything around in different settings is saying, you know, the bar is actually quite low. So settling is kind of built into the psyche almost. And so even though you've got that little, what about there? You know, what about going there? It's like, oh yeah, well, you know, does he drink too much? You know, so am I going to stay in that relationship? Because what's wrong with you? It could be a lot worse.
Yeah. You are on the money. That is exactly what happens. It could be a lot worse. I've got it pretty good. You know, my life is okay. Finances are all right. Things are working out. Why would I want to change anything? Because that's the narrative. That's what's built into our DNA, is kind of that this is what life is meant to be for you. This is what the opportunities are for you as a woman. And it's so silent, and it's to the point where we don't even know when we should say yes or no. We might say yes because that's our default to say yes. So we don't really stand up for our points of view. And I'm not talking about every woman, by the way. So if you've got listeners there that are listening or watching this and they're saying, hey, hang on, that's not me. Absolutely, it may not be you. But just listen to what's going on around you, because that's what's going on in a lot of conversations with women. Things can't.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because even as you say that, because we're saying, you know, like we're talking about a settling at this level, but there's also settling in, it doesn't matter. Like if I work with a lot of managers who don't see their potential as being around the executive table, and have worked with women that, you know, because you and I are old enough and have acquired such beauty as we age. You know, we've seen a lot. And so we know when people are like, no, man, you know, like you can totally, you're so good at this and you can totally do this. But yet so it's not just for people who are, you know, settling kind of with the basics. It's also, you know, hey, are you actually earning the same as the men that are around the executive table, which incidentally was not the case when I was working my first executive job. I was earning $100,000 less than everyone else every guy around that table. And I didn't find that out until after. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, well, women won't ask for more. They won't ask for more. They'll just settle for what's thrown at them. That can be money as well. But I think that there's this really important distinction to make here, and that is that, am I actually saying that I don't want that seat at the table because I don't want the seat at the table because I want to spend more time with my family, because I want the freedom, I don't want to have to work long hours? Or am I saying that because I don't think I've got the potential to sit at the table? And which one is real? So let's just say you're saying, I don't want that sit at the table because I don't think I've got the potential for that. Well, what is it about yourself that you're actually diminishing? Is there something about yourself is there this untapped potential that you're not recognizing in yourself, that you can't see or that you won't look at?
Yeah, and see, this lends itself so nicely into the whole being profile, isn't it? It's like the assessment tool that we use in the community, to help distinguish, if you will, is this actually my shit, or is this someone else's shit that I am totally, you know, around? And
Yeah.
so you use this to
Mhm.
to help people discern, is it theirs, or actually are they kidding themselves?
Yeah, I want to get to the heart of what it is that they're believing about themselves and about the world around them. And is that real? And that's what being authentic is, because
Mm,
it is about you. But authentic is about being real about yourself and about your potential or your competence. Let's just start with competence. Your competence.
mm,
Got a particular set of competence, right? It could be that you're really competent at being a mother, but you're denying that you are. It could be that you really have a competence of being a manager, but you're denying that you don't think that you can really have a true impact. It could be that you want to start a social impact movement, but you don't think you've got it in you. Well, what is it? It's actually getting super, super clear about that. What is it that you're telling yourself about you? Because that's, if you're telling yourself all this crap, then you're not actually being authentic.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So if we take one of the ladies that I know that you worked with around that social impact, it just reminded me. I
Yeah.
mean, what was the before and after story for her?
Oh, I mean, the before story was okay. She had this sort of out there vision that she wanted to create some kind of impact, and she had an idea of what that was, and in the area of migrant teens and supporting them to see that there are possibilities in the workforce for them, and that their careers and like career paths and all kinds of things. And these children, many of them had English as a second or third language, and so it's that they often come to Australia and their parents don't even know what's possible for them. So it's all connecting all the links of that, which was beautiful.
Mm,
And so she'd kind of edged her way into that, but in a way that she was still hesitating to really go full into it and full force into it and really be empowered in the way she approached it, and knowing how she really, really wanted to approach it. So the work was in that part of that, into really getting her clear about what that vision was, what it looked like, and where she wanted to start, and being realistic about that. And then also looking at what was getting in her way of maybe even of conversations with the people that she brought into the organisation, like her volunteers and anyone that was a part of it, or some stakeholders and so forth, or even standing up on the stage and advocating for herself. She wasn't really confident at doing that. So it was a lot around confidence and assertiveness, but also around courage. And actually, what would it be like if you were really fully self-expressing here?
mm,
Yes, what would you be doing, and what would you want things to look like? And so getting so clear, but then digging into what was actually getting in her way and what was the consequence of what was getting in her way of that. So then as we move forward, and then it spilled over to other areas of her life, like it does with everyone.
mm,
Family, it spills over to organization, because she still works in an organization as well.
yeah.
Multitasking, she's doing amazing stuff. It was to the point where in her organization people were saying, oh, you're too shy, you're not assertive enough, you're not confident enough. But no one was being really specific.
Mm,
And she was just taking all this crap on and owning it. Maybe I am too shy, maybe I'm not assertive enough. So we had to do a lot of work around that, so that she could then go, hang on a sec, I know I'm being assertive, but I'm just not changing myself to be assertive. I'm going to be true to who I am. I don't have to go in there and be aggressive.
yeah, yeah. The assertiveness is that's a It's one of those conversations that is so powerful. And I know that you've written some articles on that and, escaping people pleasing and, that whole sort of, um, how to be assertive in an authentic way. And I wonder, is there something that you can sort of share that just sort of on just a little window into that assertiveness conversation that can help people understand just, when you talk about being assertive, because it can conjure up so many different things to different people, but there's also a really pragmatic way of applying it, right?
Mhm, mhm,
So
mhm.
talk to me. I don't want to be a people pleaser. What do I need to do? Is I need to be more assertive. What would you say to me?
Oh, I would probably say to you, well, I'd probably talk to you about what your yeses are and what your real nos are. Do you even know what they are? Do you know what you want to say no to? Do
Mm.
you
Yeah,
want to
well,
say,
I mean, if we say like let's just do this, right? Like so I find it really hard still to say no to things. And it feels like my first response when I want to say no, is I consider what it is for the other person. Like if I'm invited to an event or if I'm asked to do something, whatever, I will automatically kind of use their lens of, oh, I'm helping them do that, or I should do that. I don't look in my diary and see, actually, you've already double booked yourself on that day. So my inclination is always to say yes,
mm,
actually.
yeah, right. Are you telling me the truth here? This is actually your inclination?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have to be more aware to
Yeah.
go through that little process of like, oh, can I say no to this? Because it is a thing. Like my whole sort of the last God knows how many decades has been, will you blah blah blah? Yes. Will you blah blah blah? Yes.
Ah.
It's taken a long time to get to the nose.
Oh, yeah, I understand that because it's taken me a long time to get to the nose as well. But when was the first time that you learned that it was a must to say yes?
Oh, really early on. That was the people pleaser side, right? Like that was it was like if you want to fit in. For me, my family were immigrants, and so there was always that desperate to fit in, desperate to fit in. And so the easiest way to think that you were fitting in was if people liked you. But then there's that whole fitting in versus belonging, so yeah, I can try and sort of fit into what it looks like, but do you really feel like you belong? Not really. And I'll just keep people pleasing, thinking that it's belonging, but it's just trying to fit in. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, okay, so then it's actually only recently that's come up as being oh, okay, so let's unpack that. Where did that come from? To be
Well,
able to face it.
well, another question would be, what did you get from that?
Oh, I got attention, and I did feel like I was fitting in. It's like, oh, that's great, she's going to come, so it was my way of, if I say yes, then I'm involved with things, as opposed to picking and choosing. you
Well,
know
what did it mean about you, but to be involved in things? What did you make that mean about you?
People like me. People like
Right.
me, right? Yeah. So it's like the more I say yes, the more I'm pleasing people, the more they like me. And that
Mm.
was that was the whole thing. You wanted to be liked, right? Because
Mm.
that was the good girl thing, like that you in you wrote, the book.
Right.
Power in your pocket, detox from good girl syndrome. I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
that's on my reading list. I mean, that detox from good girl syndrome, that was, we were when I grew up, we were meant to be seen and not heard. We had the cutesy little matching outfits and all of that, and that was the ultimate goal, be a good girl.
Oh, yeah. I remember a picture of me and my sisters, and we went to this place called Hillsville Sanctuary in Victoria. So people coming from Victoria would know where that is. It's like a animal sanctuary and stuff.
Right.
And we went there for the day, and it was a warm summer's day, and we all had these green floral A-frame dresses that mum had made all of us. There was 5 of us, and these long white socks and these black little shoes with the strap across the front. And we all stood there like this, sort of smiling. And I remember looking back at that and thinking my eldest sister, because I'm the second youngest out of the five, my eldest sister looked just so miserable in that photo. It was just like restraint. There had to be so much restraint. This is where I feel like women have been so used to constraining or restraining or holding back on who they actually are at their essence and their core. So they don't listen because they're listening to society and all the layers of who we're told that we have to be. I'm sure it's the same for men, but in a different narrative. But for women, it's yes, you have to be good, you have to behave, you have to hold back, you can't share your emotions. If you show your emotions, then you're looked on as, you know, being
A hysterical woman.
hysterical woman. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It is interesting because it's almost like there's a set of masks that you can choose from, none of which are your own. You know, like none of which really fits you. You know,
Yeah.
and it's like the thing. I think the tool of using the being profile to get that look into what's going on behind the mask is so powerful. I mean, you've been in the Genesis community for a really long time. I mean, what would you say about the access that tool gives you as a coach and a mentor?
Oh my gosh. I am just blown away by the relationship that I can build with my clients because of that tool. And it's because it enables us to get I'm going to use the word authentic again, but what I'm really meaning is to actually get very real about what's going on underneath and what's getting in the way of us taking action. And we, as a client coach, can develop this relationship with each other where we're willing to, I can support the client to explore. And so we kind of go on that exploration through all those different, what we call qualities, but you could even call them internal talents. They've got these things that within us that we're not actually accessing. And that's what it does. It enables the conversation to go in different directions where you can pinpoint so accurately what's going on. So building the relationship with a client is one of my biggest things that I love to do. And I had a particular client who was sharing with me how she just realized for herself in this particular time that I was coaching her that her mother, her mother used to make all the decisions for her because she would sit back and say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And so we tracked that back to this, childhood, that this is who she thought she had to be. And then she stayed quiet and stayed in the shadows and all these kinds of things. But one of the things that was so funny in one session was I said, that's what you do to me. You want me to tell you the answers.
Yeah.
But is that what you really want? Or do you actually really want to find your own answers? And that moment for both of us was so special because she could just sit back and laugh and go, oh my God, I do too. So it changed the whole trajectory of the relationship. But what enabled us to go in was those distinctions.
Right.
So that authenticity, that awareness, that, looking at that courage and looking at confidence and assertive, all of those things enabled us to get to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jeanette, I mean, obviously you're very passionate about the work that you do, right? You can tell, right? If, I mean, it's the Authentic Living channel, right? So are you living an authentic life?
I think there are times where I know that, and intuitively I know, oh, hang on, that's not really, that's not being authentic. So I can say to you, I aspire to live an authentic life and I bring awareness to when I'm not. So I don't think any of us might 100%. I think it would be even inauthentic to say that we're all the time living an authentic life or being 100% authentic.
Yeah.
I think it's important to get real with ourselves. And so what I can do is get real with myself. And then I can, once I'm real, I can choose powerfully. I can choose powerfully to have a more productive conversation with my husband.
Yeah.
Choose powerfully to say no or yes. So let me give you an example. And you know this, I've got these grandchildren. I've got 5 grandchildren.
Yes.
And we live in the town where 3 of them are. It's a city, but it feels like a town. We live in this city, Mackay, where there's 3 of them. And I love them so much that I could just say yes to everything. And I have to be very clear about where I say yes and where I say no, because I have a very high value in creating change in the world, transformation in the world. So if that's a value of mine, and I know that that value spills over into my family, where I want to influence and impact them as well. But even part of the impact and influence is saying no. Because I want them to grow up always saying yes to everything. Do I want to leave? Is that the legacy that I really want to leave?
Yeah,
No.
that's the parenting dilemma, isn't it? It's like, are you saying no because you don't love me? No, I'm saying no because I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's hard. Like if you go back to the people pleasers, situation that I was saying yes to everything. Like I probably said yes to a lot of things, even as I was being a mom with the girls, because of that hangover of, that good girl and all of that sort of stuff. And when I look back at some of the decisions, and I love the way you put it, the choices that you're making, there were many times I probably could have chosen no for the love and care reasons, but I chose yes because, more on the people pleasing and the lack of assertiveness and all those other historic things. So even as we're growing and we're uncovering all these things, it's not just, not being assertive is going to cost me at work. Not being assertive or confident is going to cost me in my relationships with my kids, with my partner, with, and I think that's one of the real beautiful things. You can coach with someone for a specific thing, but if they're getting down to what's really happening, it kind of emanates outward in all areas of their life, not just hey, I got the raise. And I think that's part of how you coach differently to say other modalities really is getting into that deeper kind of what's beneath all of that. And one of the I think you've got a new program that's sort of looking at how you go deep and create these things. There's a great what is it? Settle to Spark, I think it's called. Tell me a little bit about that and what sort of led to that as an offer within your coaching that you do with women, because I loved that whole. I love, by the way, as well, also, Jeanette, around the butterfly effect leadership. That's your website's on butterflyeffectleadership.com. And I just love that whole analogy. I mean, I love analogies, but that plus the settle to spark, it's just like, it just tells me so much about who you are and what it's like to be with you and to spend time with you and to coach with you,
Oh, thank you. Let me start with butterfly effect. What if we were being really authentic? All the women in the world were being so authentic, and they were, knowing what their real yeses are and what their real nos are. They were being confident, assertive, but they weren't doing it in such a way that they were changing who they are. What if they just knew who they were at their essence? And we would call that their unique being. If they kind of had that sense of, wow, I know me from the inside out, that's where I am right in my life. And it took me a long time to get here, P.S.
Yes. I hear you, sister. I hear you. still looking and finding and
finding. We
yeah.
find little seeds about ourselves. What if there was that impact that women were making? What would be that sort of vibration that went out to society? And so that takes me back to those little boys at the pool. What if women were all being this for themselves? What impact would that make for boys, girls, men, everyone else? So now, I'm not saying that we have to carry the world. That's not what I'm saying. So if you're listening to this or watching this, it's not that I'm saying we have to carry the world. We do not. That's being overly responsible. But it's actually honoring who we are. And even
as women.
Yes,
Yeah.
honoring who we are as women, and then finding out who we are uniquely. That's the butterfly effect kind of notion. And leadership is because we're all leaders in our own lives. So, and I obviously am a leadership coach, and I did work in organizations, but my whole drive is to impact society, is to impact on the way things are happening around us in everyday life. So that's that. And so settle to spark is like going, okay, come in and find out what it is for you, where you're settling, get really honest with yourself about what you don't want to settle for, or what you're no longer willing to give up in order to suppress yourself, to please people, where you're yourself, or
what's it costing you? What's it costing you?
Yeah, what is it costing you? And let's come in and sort of have that conversation where you can explore how because with assertiveness, for example, there's a pendulum, as you know, and it swings from nice to nasty, but in the middle is stable. It's that stable ground. It's that real resolute, that this thing that you care about, that your opinions and views matter, and you're willing to share it without being nasty, without swinging to that aggressive side. Now, don't get me wrong, I think there's a place in the world for aggression in the world, but I think that we can find that stable ground, women, and we do not always have to swing back to that nice side. Or if we find ourselves in that nice side of being, people pleasing, or, brushing things over, or taking whatever's thrown at us, then quickly swinging to aggressiveness because we're trying to somehow protect ourselves or save ourselves, or put our views forward, and we don't know how to get to that middle ground.
It reminds me, Jeanette, of I just want to share a team that I was working with a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about that assertiveness, and this was a really intelligent group of people, and each of them were sort of in this situation where they're so nice as well that they were wanting to get the company into a position where they were safe, but the messaging that they needed to tell them wasn't, hey, look, you're gonna have to pull your head in because this ship's going down. And so, but because they're so nice, it was like, hey, the ship's going down, you're gonna, whatever. And the no one was sort of taking the cues and hearing the what, like, hey, ship's going down, like that. Yep, that's water coming up the bow there. And so because nothing happened, then they literally resorted to the, and they were able to see, because then they were nasty, because now we can't even save the ship anymore. But it wasn't until they stepped back and understood the cost of, because you were being nice, you have to kind of own some of that, because if you would have been assertive and in a stable, as you call it, way, asserted that what's going to happen if we don't bail now, this whole ship's going down, not in a yelling way, not in a like way, but and that's so important. Like if you don't do it, it's on you. You can't even blame the other person.
No, but we don't like to see people's emotions getting heightened. We're in this world where we've trying to push down, or that people have emotional experiences about these things. Well, can we just acknowledge that?
Yeah.
The people are going to have emotional experiences with that, and they are going to feel, either cranky or angry or resentful or worried or those, whatever comes.
Mm.
And that's a part of, having really powerful conversations.
So what do you do when you're in that situation, where you have to be assertive and obviously, you wouldn't have written the detox from good girl syndrome had you not had that as part of your background. So now you're living the dream. You've got that, yes, within reason and everything. But how do you manage personally when you need to be assertive and you feel, like what's happening for you if it's not exactly a comfortable or if it's a really big deal and you need to be assertive? What happens for you? The expert on this stuff. Just
Oh,
walk me through.
oh, well, first of all, let me tell you that I learnt from the best. I
Right.
learnt from a father who went too aggressive all the time, and I learnt from a mother who was submissive, but then quietly sort of aggressive in
Yes,
back.
passive aggressive. Yes.
And kind of that was a manipulative tactic. So I learned from that. So I swung from one side to the other a lot. And it just really was. I look back now and think, God, it's just so that it's taken me a lot to recognize that I can have a point of view and it's okay if the other person has a different point of view. Because what I would try and do was hold on to my point of view as the truth.
Mm.
And it's not necessarily the truth unless it's backed by evidence and those kinds of things. And then you can say, well, there's evidence to say this, but don't hold on to something so tightly. So now in a conversation, I can put forward a point of view and absolutely emphatically say, this is my point of view.
Mm.
See the world in this way, and that's why I'm sharing it like this.
And
Or
it's okay that you see it differently.
okay that you see it differently, but I can't sit by and not share this very important thing that I've got sitting there for me.
Mm.
So, and then you can go from there. And then it's like, well, where do you go in that conversation? Well, you can go anywhere you like with it because there's honesty, because there's authenticity, and because people are being vulnerable. I think the vulnerability is that we are willing to share of ourselves and not worry about whether there's some sort of fallout.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. So,
But yeah.
So Jeanette, so you've got this, this program and if I'm a woman that's looking to to get to that spark phase, who am I typically, like, who is this program going to be suited
Okay. So
for?
first of all, this is a workshop.
Okay.
If you're living in Mackay, it's offline. So there's I have a
Face to face.
face-to-face, which is super cool. But if you're not in Mackay, that's no worries. You can still join in onto the workshop and come and see what it would be like for you to live a life of spark. So that's what that's about. It's about dipping your toe in the water and coming and having a look to see
Nice.
what's there for you. Does that make sense? Does it give it kind of to you a bit?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm not sure. I know there's something that I want to that's not quite where I want it to be, and
Yeah.
I'll see something a little bit more. I'll understand a little bit more about what that might be.
Yeah.
If I'm going to the workshop.
Absolutely. And so if you're the woman who wants to focus on who you are as a whole and have that impact certain areas of your life that may not be quite working for you the way you want it, or maybe you're ready to sort of jump and leap and do something, quite different, then that's for you. If you're the woman who's really sick of the status quo or sick of putting up with things the way they are, and you're willing to look at yourself, then that's for you.
So it would be safe to say if I'm starting to ask questions like, is this really the job that I want? Is this really the relationship that I want? I always wanted to do something else. What's holding me back? I feel like there's something else not sure what it is, that kind of a thing?
Yeah. Or is this the way I want this relationship to be? Or is there a possibility for this relationship to be different? Or is this job, if I do want to stay in this job, how do I want to be in this job? What do I want to see changed about it? What possibilities are there? What sort of conversations do I want to be a part of? What if I was to be living up to my full potential in this job? What might be possible for me there? So you kind of you don't necessarily need to be jumping out of something and going, hey, I want to jump out of the parachute and
Yeah.
see where I land. You could be happy with your life in general, but just know that there are some things that are not working.
So is it kind of a good to great thing? Is it a, or not so good to good, or, there's a change element in there. Like there's something that you're wanting to,
Yeah,
a difference.
there's a change element in there. You want to get spark,
Yeah. Okay.
settling for things the way they are in whatever area of life. You want spark. And maybe that spark comes by getting to know who you are at your core, at your essence, your
Yeah.
uniqueness. Yeah.
It's interesting, the whole settling thing, 'cause I've recently had a conversation with someone that was saying, literally in the post-COVID environment, it almost feels like settling is kind of underlined 16 times because we're inside more, we're on Zoom a lot more, even though the workplace stuff is changing. But it's
Mhm.
almost like as a society, we kind of have almost reverted back to screens. That's why when you're saying in Mackay that you're doing the face-to-face stuff, it just sounds so decadent, really, because people were meant to be, together. And what's your perspective on this, the whole settling part? Like, are you seeing more of that? Is it people are less likely, like feels like we're playing safe in everything. Like it just, I don't know, because Sparks says to me, like, oh, something's happening, something's exciting, something's, like, yay, as opposed to settling. It just feels like a bit of,
It is,
uh,
it
you
feels like
know?
that for me. It's like, oh, another workshop, oh, another webinar, oh, another Zoom meeting, those kinds of things, or another, trip to the, driving trip to work and back or whatever.
Yeah,
It does feel like that. It's like a flat line.
yeah.
But I think what's important is that we we support people to recognize what settling looks like for them.
Mm,
Oh, they could have been in a relationship for 30 years and they want to stay in that relationship, but that relationship probably, it may not have the spark that it once did. But what about for those that want to stay and they just want to, maybe bring a bit more spark to the relationship or bring a few more honest conversations or share a bit more about themselves to that person, or you know what I mean? It's not going to be the same for everyone. So I think it's dangerous to try, and I know that we're not doing this, but I think it's worth mentioning that let's not try and paint a picture on what settling looks like for people. Let them paint that picture themselves, because it's not until you intuitively go into the depths of your soul and get really authentic about where you're settling that you will be able to determine how you want it to look differently and whether you're prepared to take the journey for that to happen.
yeah, 100%. Because that's if I'm happy pottering in the garden and retiring early and watching the pear tree grow, that to me isn't settling necessarily. That to me is success, and so I really um, underline that point that you're making. This isn't about making judgments and identifying like this is the gold standard of life. It's actually, you have to define it. You have to define what success looks like, and you have to define what settling, are you settling or is this success? For you personally, I mean, you've had this amazing career. You're sparking all over the frickin' place. What is success to Jeanette Mundy?
There's so many things. I mean, success is the decision that we made, my husband and I, to come back to Mackay. That's success. That decision was made on the basis of some really sound evidence that things weren't quite right the way that they were, where we were in Brisbane. And that's, for now, that's where we are. So that's success. Success is having all these grandchildren running around and 3 daughters who have made it into adult life as, oh my gosh, thriving. And they're all out there doing their thing. And, life's not perfect, but it's definitely, I can call that success. Success is turning around. It's so interesting. I don't know how to say this, but, my marriage wasn't always great, by the way. It wasn't. And my husband would attest to that as well. And I think success is being able to look at ourselves and be honest and say, oh, I stuffed up here, or, and being able to kind of come back and find that place where we can land and that we have made the decision to be in a relationship together. That's success, right? Success.
Beautiful.
Yeah, success is finding who I am. I turned 61 this year. And it's the finding who I am in the journey continuously.
Yeah.
And, that is success. Success is writing an article. Whoa, success. Success is writing a book. Success is leaving the corporate world. And that to me was success. For somebody else, it may not be. Somebody else, it might have been climbing the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
But that's success, starting my business. So there's all this. So I think, but living this authentic life as much as I can be consciously aware of is success.
No, that's beautiful. That's so good. And I guess, for other people that are listening that want to have a little bit more of an authentic life for them as well. I mean, what kind of advice would you give somebody that's saying like, yeah, I think I could be living a little bit more of an authentic life, that's.
Yeah. Well, I think you first have to ask yourself, are you prepared for things to stay the way they are? Or are you willing to look? You are willing to look. If you really think that this is not the way you want to continue living your life, then you must honor that. That's what I would say.
Is there like a feeling, like what would that look like? I know it'll be different for different people in that, but what does it feel like or look like, or how do I know, Jeanette?
Right. Well, I just leant forward in my seat here.
You did. I know. I kind of feel like I should lean back.
Because this is where I get lit up, because it is that intuition that you feel, that you'll get feelings in your body. You'll get a feeling in your heart that's telling you there's something there to look at, to take care of. It won't be that anxious feeling in your gut that you get, which is telling you, well, it could be there actually, even that anxious feeling in your gut that says, oh, there's something there to look at. Whatever it is, always comes back to the things that we don't necessarily look at. Look at them. Go into your body and kind of go, here, oh yeah, there's something for me. Yeah, you'll know it.
It's funny because I mean I love the topic of women and the whole thing and that intuitive side of things, and I love that you're bringing out almost the awareness and recognition of that, because for so long, I mean, I certainly grew up in the men's corporate world, and I even wore a tie for a period, like honestly. But it's different. We are different in terms of that intuition and that internal guidance system, that if we just listen and we can hear, even if it's not clear, this is, thou shalt go there, it's still saying right now ain't it, like it's that, hey, this isn't okay. Something needs to happen. And I wonder, I mean, just as we're kind of coming to an end here, do you have to wait till you're 61 to feel the intuition? Does it feel like it feels almost like more accessible, like as you're older? Is it a thing? Can I be 20 and still feel the intuition and be all of that? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, well, you can be, look, I think there is this kind of wisdom that we get as we're getting older as women. So this is kind of a, you know, post or pre, then menopausal, then postmenopausal. I do believe we develop this wisdom, and that increases our intuition. But the intuition is there for all of us. It's there, it's within us. It's not like we're not born without it. We are. Men are born with it too, but it's just different. So I think for any woman who is, you know, has a little question that comes up, or a little thing that just sits on their shoulder, that's it. That's your intuition. Something there for you to look at. Look towards it. Don't look away from it.
Nice. Well, Jeanette, look, it's been fantastic. And if you're a woman who has that little niggle or the little something sitting on the shoulder, Jeanette's the person to talk to talk that through. To our viewers, do you have any sort of where you can direct them if they want to hear more about the workshops or butterfly effect leadership and that sort of thing?
Yes, absolutely. They can go to my website, butterflyeffectleadership.com. And you can actually get the book from the website as well if you wanted to. Power in Your Pocket Detox from Good Girl Syndrome. That is there, available on Amazon or any good books online bookstore. Also, they can follow me on the Ingenesis community, because I am a platform partner, so I do write articles for Ingenesis, and so I have a profile there, and so they can follow me there, and also find the workshops there as well. On LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram, Jeanette_Mundy on Instagram. Daggiest profile, but it's there. But that's that's what it is at the moment. So they can definitely find me.
Nice. That's fantastic. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm sure that others will be you know, resonating with a lot of the stuff that we've discussed today. And I really thank you for your time and your openness and sharing. Jeanette, it's been really great. So thank you, viewers, for joining us on the Authentic Living and Loving channel. If you have a story to share that will inspire others, we'd love to hear from you. And until we meet again, I'm Dr. Jordan Alexander, encouraging you to join the UBU revolution. Let's all live a life we don't need a vacation from. Thank you so much, Jeanette.
Thank you, Jordan. It's been a blast.
Thanks for watching the Authentic Living channel. If you liked the show, please subscribe, like, and share. Sponsored by learningforlivingacademy.com.